This Tesla business just went from undervalued to now over-delivering. Arguably, Elon Musk fulfilled his FSD promises that he made earlier this year about the improvement level. 12.5.1.3 is 14 times better overall and 4 times safer than 12.3.6. And this month, FSD 12.5 point releases already got significantly better according to this chart and are twice as safe. And you will be surprised to hear the source of this data. The community tracker is the source of data. Unlike others, I got my data from the tester view and compared how the experience changes within the same groups of testers. So for example, if they used to disengage a lot, even then they don't really need to, that habit should continue and we should actually see the real improvement between versions. This is a pretty big deal because even James is now really interested in what's happening here. And if it's actually true and if it holds regularly when you look at the same testers and it got this much better, if we can duplicate this over and over again, this is incredibly good news. So there's actually quite a bit of discussion about this going on right now, and Elon Musk responded to this himself personally. My wife, who vouched that she would never ever activate FSD, is now using FSD 12.5.3 for more than 90% of her drives. No amount of graphs or data can capture the success of FSD when it successfully passes a non-tech spouse approval test. This is a good test for whether FSD is achieving escape velocity, says Elon, and this guy said buy Tesla. So if you go to teslafsdtracker.com, scroll down, you can then click on tester view, and here, for example, you can select tester ID, and there are a lot of them. So if you really want to check this out, it's gonna take a while. This account makes some really good points. For example, here he says that V12.5 is 10 times better than V11, which conforms to the raw data from the community tracker. However, in the community tracker, it shows that V12.3.6 is 28% worse than V12.3.3, which is not true because if we take the same testers in V12.3.3 and V12.3.6, and then he actually names the testers, and you can look this up yourself in the FSD community tracker, we'll see that V12.3.6 is actually 1.86 times better than V12.3.3. Furthermore, if we take the version release date into consideration, we have figure 2, where the exponential growth is much more obvious. By fitting a trend line and extending it to the end of 2024, we can see that by end of 2024, FSD will become approximately 5 times better than V12.5.1, which is roughly 20 times better than V12.3.6. Well, these are just assumptions. Currently, the FSD tracker is definitely getting a lot more attention, so bears, for example, someone like Gordon Johnson, will naturally try FSD, force it to make errors on purpose, basically, by running it through some extreme scenarios, with which I'm totally fine, by the way. But if you want to see accurate progress, then if you have some tester drive through a calm city on a Sunday morning, comparing that to someone who is purposely trying to break the system in the absolute most extreme scenarios, that's just not going to be a valid comparison. And that could be one reason why we are seeing the data we are seeing on the FSD tracker right here. Maybe critical disengagements did not really improve much because people are just really pushing the system to its very limits. Also, I see that there is a little data from California, and with 12.3 versions, we had a lot of data from California, so that's another thing to consider. I wish there was an easy way right here to only show me the people that have both 12.3 and this 12.5 version. Then we could exclude people that didn't really have any data here for 12.3. This data would be great if we knew for certain that people were also really trying to push 12.3 version to its limit, but we don't know that for sure. Anyway, to me, what's very clear about this is that there's still a lot of room to improve for FSD, and it's not a done deal yet. And this data right here is only a sort of suggestion or an idea of maybe what it could be doing where FSD is right now, but it definitely has some serious flaws. And look at what Gary Black is saying about FSD here. I can't understand why anyone with half a brain would short Tesla stock with unsupervised FSD about to become a reality within the next 6 to 12 months. Unsupervised FSD will be a massive demand driver, lead to one or more licensing deals with other OEMs, and increase FSD take rates. I have no doubt that Elon Musk is right that once Tesla fully solves autonomy and has Optimus in full volume production, anyone sure the stock will be obliterated. And so let's go through some of the good news for Tesla right now. Energy is finally delivering material earnings. Demand in China is very strong on government incentives and overall new energy vehicle market strength. New energy vehicles include hybrids as well as battery electric vehicles. Battery costs are plummeting. Model 3 sales are up big now with IRA qualification and 2% financing deals. Cybertruck Foundation Series demand is still strong, which is good, even though there was quite a bit of FUD about it. 4680 ramp is progressing well, which is also very good for Tesla overall. The Model Y demand is still strong in most markets, despite the refresh coming relatively soon, which is usually when the sales are supposed to slow down. In the meantime, though, we do have demand in Europe dragging somewhat. The Model 3 imports will hit the margin hard due to new tariffs in Europe, but Tesla can manufacture the Model 3 in Europe, which should, in the long term, solve the problem. So that's really just a short-term problem. FSD performance, James said, has now materially improved since March, but he made this post before he saw that other post I showed you earlier. So I think right now he's quite unsure about that statement. He continues, auto margin still has now bottomed as the financing rates will again weigh heavy, but I think they may bottom in Q4 if Fed starts cutting, which likely it will. There are a few big unknowns. First of all, the robotaxi event. James has very low expectations for that. I'm not expecting much. I'm just expecting to see a robotaxi vehicle, but if FSD is not solved, what use is there for a robotaxi? So the robotaxi vehicle itself, it doesn't matter. What matters is FSD progress. More important, is Tesla on track to launch new vehicle models on existing production lines in early 2025 and then launch the refresh Model Y with hopefully 4680 cells to qualify for the IRA battery production credits? Next year for Tesla, it is going to be a big year with these new models coming out. Now, it is possible that Tesla actually may not start making the Model 3 in Berlin if they are going to make other models over there. But in the long term, it just makes sense to just make it in Giga Berlin. So I am expecting the switch to happen because of the tariffs. Okay, seriously, what just happened here? This guy, Seth Abramson, you will not believe who he is. He's a journalist, New York Times bestselling journalist, lawyer. So this journalist says, I'm confused. West Point, which is a military academy in the US, just had Elon Musk as its convocation speaker when Musk is providing vehicles ready for military use to sanctioned enemies of America. Why isn't this the biggest story in America today? Why is West Point coddling a man working openly against the US? Elon personally replied to this post, are you seriously so retarded that you think I donated a Cybertruck to a Russian general? That's amazing. Yet another example of how much the legacy media lies. Anyway, this is getting a lot of attention. Elon Musk called him a Russian general and he said, Elon, thank you. Come to Grozny. I will receive you as the most dear guest. Obviously, this is all propaganda. If Elon goes there, he's definitely an enemy of Russia right now because he's using Starlink to help Ukraine, basically. I definitely cannot imagine how Russia would think of Elon Musk as a friend and just allow him to just come. I mean, it's possible, but it would be a major political thing. But there's a real possibility we will see a Cybertruck in the war zone. There's another post from that reporter which is getting a lot of attention. He said here, Elon Musk fails to reply to the query and all US media have been asking why isn't he remotely turning off this Tesla, which is supposedly violating Tesla's terms of service. What's also a bit confusing is many people are saying that Cybertruck is a piece of junk, and some of these same people are showing this Cybertruck being used supposedly by a military force. Anyway, we also know that Fred Lambert from Electric can be extremely critical of Elon Musk, but here he's not even suggesting that Elon Musk could have possibly given the Cybertruck to this military leader who's been a de facto dictator of Chechnya for the past 2 decades. The people believing in that story that Elon Musk gave the Cybertruck to that dictator, it reminds me of people who also believe this. It takes a special kind of stupid to think in mid-2024, with Model Y being the highest volume selling car in the world, that Tesla's competition is other EVs primarily. And the Model Y also happens to be the most American-made vehicle. Speaking of American manufacturers, Tesla is the only one in the top 7. And you actually have to scroll quite a bit to see some American names. Look. Wow. Ford makes its first appearance after the first 30 cars only. We know that James has a political bias, and he cannot relate to this despite his bias. Why no longer crave a Tesla? He still wants a Tesla and will order a Model Y performance refresh on day 1 of availability, he says. Elon Musk personally replied to this, so I want to bring this to your attention as well. I am awestruck at the rate of progress of AI on all fronts. Today's expectations of capability a year from now will look silly, and yet most businesses have no clue what is about to hit them in the next 10 years when most rules of engagement will change. Now, to me personally, when I hear things like that, I like to look back the same number of years that they are telling me that everything is going to change so drastically, so quickly. So he's basically saying, look ahead 1 year. Well, okay, I look back 1 year. What has changed? For me personally, not that much. I mean, we have seen some incredible things like AI generated videos, and that was wow. And if I can go back about 2-ish years, okay, I am using ChatGPT now regularly. Other than that, for me personally, not that much has changed. But he says, read situational awareness by this guy. I buy his assertion only a few hundred people know what is happening. And Elon replied with, the pace is incredibly fast. It's definitely true that the pace is very fast. But also, I want to show you the other side of the argument. In the 1960s, everyone thought we would have vacation homes on the moon by now because of the progress in aerospace. And yet, we don't even go to the moon at all. This is the same. We're extrapolating a sigmoid into the future. The next revolution will come from something else. One slight problem about AI right now is all of the data that's publicly available, a lot of it already has been injected into these training models. So it's becoming a bit harder to make them better because you cannot just go find new data easily. You sort of have to create your own data now. And another tricky thing is, if you look for more data that's new, there's a good chance that data has been created. For example, an article written by AI. And if you train your AI on articles that have been created by AI, how good is your AI going to be? It's a little bit like making a clone of 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 a clone, and then eventually your end product deteriorates quite a bit. It's not that good. But see, with full self-driving, we don't really have that issue because we are making the data. No one really has access to it except for Tesla. And the more time passes by, the more data Tesla creates and collects, and the bigger the fleet of Tesla gets. So that means we can get even more data even faster, and the more people use FSD, the more data we get, and the more people will be driving, and the more people will want to buy a Tesla, creating even more data, which creates better driving experiences for everybody, improving FSD. That then again creates more demand because more people want to get Teslas. This is this circle that makes Tesla stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And here's a counter argument against that counter argument. Space in the 60s was driven by governments largely for national ego reasons. If it had been driven by companies with viable business models and incentives to innovate, there would be people living on the moon by now. By making better AI, you can make a lot of money, and a lot of the business models are very clear, like with FSD. Or if you can create realistically looking videos, you can basically make movies without paying actors. And you don't need a huge crew filming everything, traveling to multiple different locations. You just enter a few prompts and you have your clip. Elon replied to this, Alexander Mers would love for Elon to invite the former president to visit Giga Austin, increasing even more his understanding of EVs and Tesla's products and services. Elon agrees. So I'm pretty sure that Elon Musk has mentioned something to the former president. If he hasn't, then I'm sure he will. This is getting a bit of attention on X. They're trying to convince you that a judge's biased opinion matters more than what 70% of shareholders vote on. Look at this headline right here. Tesla is testing whether stockholders have the power to overrule a judge. The headline is a bit misleading because really the headline should ask, who controls the company, the shareholders or the judge? In Delaware. We'll find out soon, but regardless, companies should get out of Delaware, says Elon. We got some news here. Tesla Giga Berlin's diversity was recently highlighted by one of the largest economic interest groups between Berlin and the Oder. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Google Translate says I'm pronouncing it correctly in English, but in German, I'm sure it sounds a bit different. This is definitely proof you don't need DEI to have a naturally diverse workforce. Just hire the best and you will have a good result. And Giga Berlin now employs over 100 different nationalities, and the diversity of nations has increased significantly over time. To be specific, I think Giga Berlin employs people from 120 different nations. What? You will want to pay attention here. This is pretty good. Tesla Insurance is paying for most or all of the monthly cost of FSD in my case, says Jeff. I started at $163 a month for a Model X Plaid driving score of 90. FSD Supervised 12.5 has elevated my driving score to 100 now and lowered my premium significantly by $70 per month, I think he says. Here's his upcoming premium payment, which I assume is already lower than before. And here's his estimated future premium, which is going to be in September. So if he continues like this, okay, he's going to pay even less. This is lower than anything he has seen before. So this is good. I've seen some mixed feelings about Tesla's insurance when people try to claim stuff and things like that. The jury is still out exactly how well Tesla will do long term in this business, but Jeff is definitely very happy here. And it's not really a very, very important business financially for Tesla. I think it's just more to lower the cost of ownership of Tesla's vehicles, which then makes them more competitive. And if the insurance side of the business can talk to the manufacturing side of the business, Tesla can make things easy to repair, which makes insurance costs much lower later. I see quite a few people talking about these numbers from automotive news that just came out, and these investors are looking pretty happy. This is from July specifically. Sales are robust across the board, except for the S. X sales are robust. Model 3 shows a modest growth, but the Y is still sizzling. It seems like Larry has just increased his expectations for Tesla's numbers in the US. Ha! Farzad is teasing Larry. Maybe Elon should talk politics more often. Speaking about Elon's world and X is actually shutting down its operations in Brazil. Elon explains what happened. Due to demands by Justice Alexander in Brazil that would require us to break in secret Brazilian, Argentinian, American, and international law, X has no choice but to close our local operations in Brazil. This secret censorship order has been published here on X. I'm not seeing any backlash really against Elon Musk, so for us Tesla stock investors, I think we're good here. Elon further explains himself. The decision to close the X office in Brazil was difficult, but if he had agreed to Alexander's illegal secret censorship and private information handover demands, there was no way we could explain our actions without being ashamed. I've seen this chart being thrown around and people are excited about it. This is the US electric vehicle sales in June. Tesla and everyone else here. There's also one minor adjustment that we need to make to this chart. These are profitable vehicles and these are cash furnaces. I really like this exchange. Been thinking about how crappy it is that the only data we have to judge FSD improvements off of is an open source data feed, not direct data from Tesla. But I then realized if robotaxis are as big of an opportunity as we think, why on earth would Tesla publicize how close they are or what their concrete trajectory is for achieving unsupervised FSD? If it was good, that would sound the alarm bells for all competitors. Right now, it's best that everyone stay on the boy who cried wolf narrative and disbelieve any of Elon's trajectories. I personally don't think that Tesla is using that strategy. I think Elon is really just wanting to get it out as soon as possible. Otherwise, Elon Musk would not be saying things like, this next version is going to improve interventions by 10 times or something like that. But I agree with James Dama, the best understanding comes from just using the product. We have the first reported Tesla Semi crash, and it caught fire after the crash. It just happened in California. Unfortunately, no injuries were reported. The semi was the only vehicle involved in this accident. It just veered off the highway. The cause of fire has not been determined yet. Oh, and the semi did not even have a trailer attached to it. We also don't know yet who the semi belongs to, Tesla, PepsiCo, or another testing partner. Here's some footage of the crash. Yeah, the vehicle completely burned down. That's it for this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. By joining Patreon, you will have access to all of my exclusive videos on Patreon, as well as how much I am willing to pay for each Tesla share between 2024 and 2033. If you join the investor tier, you will also have access to my valuation model, where you will see all of my assumptions, including deliveries, the energy business, Tesla's future businesses like FSD, and of course much more. And then if you want to easily download that and put in your own numbers, then this third tier is for you. To all of my Patreon supporters, thank you so much. Make sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't yet as well. It's really important to like the videos because that makes it less likely that the channel will be shadow banned later, like my other big channel got shadow banned before from about 50% of my regular viewers. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.